Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tulare Public Library. We are so excited to be with you for another edition of On the Shelf. Here at the library, we are celebrating National Library Week, which runs from April 4th to April 10th. So today, the books that Kat and I will be suggesting will all be on that theme. So Kat, unless there's anything else you want to add, I think we'll just go ahead and dive right in with our first selection.
Sounds good.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to discuss or suggest first The Strange Library by Japanese author Haruki Murakami. The reason that I am suggesting this book is because I absolutely love this as an art object. So let me show you what I mean. So it's so interesting the way that it opens and the way that you read the book. I've noted a couple of different pages here. The illustrations are just absolutely gorgeous. So not only are you reading an interesting story, but the experience of reading such an interesting looking book is what added to it for me. So The Strange Library is a bit of a surreal, almost horror-like story about an unsuspecting patron who kind of gets stuck beneath the library. And a lot of interesting kind of surrealist things happen to him. So it's definitely, for fans of horror, it is a little bit darker, definitely not an uplifting story, but it's fascinating. I've always wanted to read something by him. And because this is a shorter title, just about 100 pages or so, I found it an excellent one to start with.
Sounds good. It reminds me of that thing we did over the summer with do you remember what we did, that adult program where it was the escape room, the virtual escape room?
Yes, it's
where we went under TPL. So
yes, that is a perfect example of it has that same kind of feel. And if you're interested in puzzles and figuring things out, yes, I love that you brought that up. Great point.
Very good. Okay, for my first book suggestion, I kind of went the other way. So this one is not dark and scary at all. We've got The Overdue Life of Amy Byler by Kelly Harms. And it's a heartwarming and romantic story about an overworked single mother who just devotes everything she has to her job as a librarian and her children, and she's just worn out. And then when her ex-husband comes back and decides to take the kids for the summer, she has some freedom and she decides to go to a library conference in New York, and she goes there and just has the time of her life and decides to make some changes in how she takes care of herself, and bring that self-care is a great way to be there for those around you too. Not always constantly giving, but to take care of yourself too. So it's about a woman who has fun adventures. There's makeovers, there's romance. It is a very lighthearted, cute story.
I love that. And it seems very timely, Kat. I mean, considering the year we've all had, I think self-care is something that we can all spend a little more time focusing on. So reading a story that really highlights that, it sounds wonderful.
Yes.
All right, perfect. So my next selection is my Ideal Bookshelf, edited by Thessaly LaForce with art by Jane Mount. This is actually a nonfiction selection, and it is such a magical little book. For me, the tie-in was, I think this is a great choice for patrons that are looking to, add to their reading list and figure out what to read next. And as I was reading it, I thought about myself walking through the stacks here at Tulare Public Library, trying to, curate my own ideal bookshelf. So I thought it was really fun, a really fun tie-in for libraries that way. So let me quickly show you. So the way this book is laid out is, they've interviewed all sorts of people, whether it's chefs, entrepreneurs, writers, artists, just a huge variety of people. They either talk about their ideal bookshelf, and sometimes, the writing isn't even related to that. It could just be a story about their life, what's influenced them. So, sometimes it's really connected to the bookshelf and sometimes not. And then what's really fabulous about this book, for all of you art lovers out there, is each person has an illustration of their perfect bookshelf. And I just spent so much time poring over these color illustrations, looking at the details, looking at the book spines, because they're all accurate and reflect, what the actual books look like. So not only is it fun to get great reading ideas, learn more about some notable people out in the world, but if you have a love of art or like drawing yourself, I just think this is a really, really fun one.
I love the illustrations in that. That's a beautiful choice.
Gorgeous.
My next book is also nonfiction. It's called The World's Strongest Librarian. It is nonfiction, but it reads like a story. So it's by Josh Hanagarne, and he is a weightlifting 6'7" tall librarian. And the interesting thing about him is that he also has Tourette syndrome. And so when you think of libraries, you think of shush. And so that's an obstacle that he's had to overcome. Weightlifting helped train him to be able to control his vocal tics a little more. It's just an amazing story about a geeky boy who loved his books, who grew up with a dream job and the obstacles that got in his way, and all he did to overcome that. It also talks about his family, his life growing up in Utah. He works at the Salt Lake City library there, or he did when this book was written. It's been a while. I'm not sure what he's up to now. So it's just a fascinating look at his Mormon roots, about the place he grew up. It's just a really good memoir of a librarian who you wouldn't expect to be a librarian. And so not everybody has buns and cardigans. Sometimes they have gigantic muscles and tower over you. So totally recommend The World's Strongest Librarian by Josh Hanagarne.
Kat, I love that. Just, as library staff, we're always talking about the goal being, the library being a place for all with patrons. And I love that that's a special take on staff as well, whether you're employed or just coming. Definitely a place for all. I love that. Well, my last selection is a bit similar to yours, Kat. This is called This Is What a Librarian Looks Like by Kyle Cassidy. I just recently read this book myself and was just enamored. It's so fabulous. So once again, I wanted to open the pages here and give you a sense. So this book has 3 different sections. What they do, this first section here, they have testimonials from different people. A lot of them are writers, some of them are notable cultural figures. And they give a testimonial a lot of times about what libraries mean to them, or perhaps their home branch when they were growing up. They talk a lot about how libraries have shaped them, both as writers and influencers, in addition to human beings. So that was a really interesting part of it. Next, and these are all scattered throughout the book, they kind of trade off. The other thing that they do is have pictures of real life librarians, all different kinds of jobs within library systems, and they'll have a unique quote, a little snippet. So it's really wonderful because not only do you get to see the faces of library staff all over the nation, but you really get a sense of what drew them to the profession, what they find important about what libraries offer, how they see the democratization of information and access for all. So I love that personal element of it. And then last but not least, they have stories peppered throughout about different types of libraries. So they talk about the first library ever in Alexandria, Egypt. They talk about the first lending library in the United States. They talk about a bookmobile library in Wyoming that's really the only point of Wi-Fi for rural communities. So it's really, really interesting because they look at both the history of libraries and they focus on really interesting stories within the contemporary library world to really create a complete picture of what libraries mean to us all. And I love this because, it meant something specific to me because I work in a library. Kat, I'm sure you'd agree. But I think anyone that's ever visited a library, anyone that has memories of going to the library growing up, anyone that's interested, again, in the democratization of information and access for all, I think that everyone will get something out of this book. It was heartwarming, informative. I can't speak about it highly enough. I loved it.
Very cool. My last choice here is called Murder off the page. We have so many mystery lovers who come into this library. I wanted to make sure that we had something for them. So this is off the page. It's from the series, The 42nd Street Library Mysteries, written by Lehane. And I have not personally read this one, but I chose it because it was one of the library mysteries that did not involve cats. And there's a ton of bookstore or library mysteries that involve cats. And I thought, you know what, let's focus on one that doesn't. It doesn't seem like it's a very gritty one. I did see cozy mystery pop up when it was describing it. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be hardcore grisly. It seems like it's going to be not a fun read. I mean, someone still dies. It's terrible. But it does seem like there's a victim with a double life. So who was the killer after? Which side of her personality was he after? And those can always be really interesting. But the librarian solves mysteries in his off time. So very busy guy. So that's off the page. And like you mentioned, these are just a couple of the dozens and dozens that we have on the shelf here. So if this is a subject that interests you, just ask at the front desk or give us a call, and we have a ton of suggestions for you. So also, thank you for joining us today. We love doing this program. And even though we're doing it in separate rooms now, we used to do it out in the open, but the library is reopened. So we can't film this outside anymore, but you are welcome to come in and browse the shelves yourselves. We cannot wait to see you. We've been so excited to have the doors open and see people come back in. It has been an amazing week, and it's wonderful that it happened during National Library Week.
Yes.
So, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to check out our old episodes and any of our other activities on our YouTube page. Thanks again.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.